forget. I am recording the session. I'll post that on my website, businesstechguy.com. It should be up there within the hour. And I'll show you where that's at, and you can go out and watch that later if you'd like. And by the way, I always tell every group this. If you need help with RPR, or there's something I show you that you'd like a little bit more explanation or guidance, please feel free to reach out to me. There's no charge for that whatsoever. I'm one of you. I'm a real estate broker, but I'm also a speaker and a trainer, and I love to help people. And I just believe in the law of reciprocation. You help people out. If you give, you shall what? Receive. So I just like to help people out. Now, if you call me every day, I might have to charge you something. But anyway, we'll talk about that later. So you feel free to call me if you have a question. Okay, so I'm a real estate broker, just like you. Got my license in 1978 at the age of 18. Believe it or not, some of you I know are calculating my age right now. Yes, I'm 55, but real estate's all I've ever done. I started out as a salesperson. I took over my mom's office as a manager. Then I became the owner and a selling broker because I had a small firm, and then we grew to 3 offices and a bunch of agents, and I became just a managing broker where I did not sell anymore. And in 2006, I sold my company. I was a little bit burned out, I guess you could say. At that time, I'd been in the business for 28 years, and I was just kind of thought the grass was greener on the other side of the hill. So I'm not going to bore you with the entire story, just to say I've been over there on the other side of the hill. The grass is not that green. Don't worry about going over there. It's a lot of fun right where we're at, okay? So I sold my company right before the downturn. I could go on and on, but in 2009, when my non-compete clause was up, I decided to reopen my real estate office. And I told my wife, I said, I really want to just get back in. I'm speaking a lot and training and traveling all over the world, and I'm having the time of my life, but I just missed being in the trenches with you guys, listing and selling real estate. And for me, there was some disconnect speaking to groups of real estate professionals, telling them, hey, you ought to be doing this, you ought to be doing that. And yet I'm not really in the trenches doing it. So I reopened my office in 2009, and I list and sell real estate just like you do. I work with title companies, inspectors. I go through that whole gamut of stuff. In fact, I'm waiting patiently right now to try to put together a pretty large farm deal because I do a lot of farms and land in Missouri. So I'm one of you, okay? And I love this program, and it really works, and it adds business for me to my bottom line because it is so unique and so different. So what I want to share with you today are really some of the basics of RPR. And so we'll talk about what is RPR, how to use it with sellers and buyers. I'm going to show you how to create some reports. And, it's called a basic class, but hey, I'm a technology guy, and I love pushing the envelope on marketing and technology. And I want to tell you what, this tool right here can allow you to do some just mind-boggling stuff with technology and marketing and to generate more business. So I may take you out, if it's okay, I might take you out some deeper waters. But trust me, I'm there to hold your hand and not let you go anywhere, okay? So I want to show you some really cool things that you can do with RPR as well. So what is RPR? Let's just kind of start there and talk about RPR is this national platform of what we call a parcel-centric database of over 170 million parcels. If you have a property in your community that is parceled at the county courthouse, it's in RPR, okay? Now, one way I like to explain this is a property I just closed recently in my community. These were some folks, and I'll just call them Smith, okay, for the sake of the webinar. But Mr. and Mrs. Smith had lived in their home since 1954. Now, I I was born in 1960. I lived down the street from the Smiths since 1967 or so. I'd known them my entire life because we went to church together. And from my recollection and from my visits and conversations with my mother, the Smiths never ever put their house on the real estate market for sale. They were the classic folks who in the 1950s or 40s moved in a home, raised their family there, and just stayed there. They didn't, there were a lot of folks back in that era did not sell as often as perhaps you and I do today. And so the Smiths lived in their home since 1954. Well, unfortunately, Mr. Smith passed away. Mrs. Smith went into a nursing home. Their two boys wanted me to sell the property for them. And what I mean by a parcel-centric property database of over 170 million parcels is this. I was able to go to RPR, look up the Smiths property, and find it in RPR with all of the information I needed from the courthouse. And RPR even suggested a listing price for me. Now, I can't use that listing price as, that's the price. I've still got some work to do as a real estate broker and agent, but that's what I mean by this property with all this data and information. And it's a very cutting edge application, as you will see, because there are over 300 different pieces of data that is collected or gathered around the internet, and it's placed right inside of RPR's database. For example, if you want to know how many people vote Republican in your zip code or how many people vote Democrat, it's in RPR. You want to know the annual average days of sunshine in your zip code? It's in RPR. And some people might say, why do I want to know what the average days of sunshine? Well, when I show you the neighborhood reports and reports you can share with people who are relocating to your area, that kind of information and that kind of data that you can share with people is huge because they may make a decision on relocating to your area based on some of the statistics about your area. So there's lots of data, there's lots of statistics. It has property information that our MLS would never have because, as in the Smiths example, the property was never on the market. And so therefore, I'm able to go to RPR, look up properties that may have never been in the MLS, find all the data I need, and RPR would even be so kind enough to say, and you know what, John? We think you ought to list the property for this price. Now, again, I can't use that price as the gospel, okay? However, I get to use my experience and my knowledge of the marketplace to fine-tune that number. Because at the end of the day, it's just a computer giving us a number, right? The computer doesn't know if that house is on a busy street, or it doesn't know some of the characteristics we might know about school districts or neighborhood boundaries as far as, if there's an area in my community where there's a pretty large highway, and on one side of the highway, there's a real nice subdivision called Farmington Meadows, very nice subdivision, and on the other side of the highway is a very nice subdivision called John David subdivision. And they're two totally different subdivisions. You wouldn't want to pull comps from Farmington Meadows when you're getting a listing in John David subdivision. And so we all have those kind of really quirky or weird situations or scenarios, but that's where you and I get to go in and add our experience and our knowledge to RPR to come up with the most accurate price that we can. And that's what we mean by having all of this data and this really cutting edge application. And guess what? It's only for realtors. The public has no access to this because it's owned by you and I as NAR members. And so there's no consumer public access and there's no charge for you to use this database. Now, I always hate that bullet point. I didn't produce these slides, and I can't change the slides, but you are paying for RPR with your dues dollars. I mean, you and I pay our annual dues, which you probably just got your dues statement. I did a couple of weeks ago. And so it's included with your dues dollars. But guess what? I'm not here to try to upsell or sell you anything extra. Okay. So it's a very cutting edge application. It's only for you and I. Now, what is it? It's a research tool. It's a pricing tool. I always tell classes when I'm doing RPR that in the last 12 to 24 months, I've probably closed, I would say, 7 to 8 properties that I would not have been able to close if it had not been for RPR, because it's such a great pricing tool. Now, I know some people shake their head and say, well, we've got the MLS. And by the way, RPR is not here to replace the MLS. But it is a really interesting pricing tool, and I'll tell you more about that in a minute. And by the way, we're going to get in and really work with RPR, so don't panic. I just have 1 or 2 more slides to show you, and then we're going to get in and work with RPR. But it's a pricing tool. It's a farming and a prospecting tool. I'll show you that here in just a little bit, because I'm actually working on some things now in my own marketplace and how I'm farming and prospecting with RPR. And it's a listing presentation tool. I want to tell you this. If you're using RPR for your CMA and your competitor's using the MLS, because I've seen most all CMAs. I mean, I am a tech person and I travel around the country. I know all the big MLSs. My MLS is CoreLogic and the Matrix that I use, and they're very nice systems. Don't get me wrong. I'm not putting any system down, but I do want to tell you this. The reports you get from RPR is unbelievable. And I can beat out a competitor in my marketplace 95% of the time because it just delivers such an interesting report and an interesting message. And I'll talk more about that here in just a second. So 1 more slide and 2 more slides, and then we're going to get started. Let's talk about AVMs and RVMs because, and just briefly, I won't spend as much time as I normally do here, but I think it's important for you to understand why we have RPR. We have this thing that's been in the marketplace for a while called an AVM. They're automated valuation models. You know what they are. It's funny. Just last year, I got a call from some folks, and they said they wanted to look at a property that I had listed on a particular road. They gave me the address and said, could we look at that tomorrow about 3 o'clock? And of course, as a real estate professional, for me anyway, when I've been selling real estate for as long as I have, when you talk to someone and they're calling off a specific address, you kind of feel pretty good because they've already driven by the location and they like the area. And I was not able to pre-qualify them as much as I wanted to on the phone, but sometimes you just have to do that. And I'm just, you'd love to pre-qualify everybody, but I had a good feel about this phone call. So I set the appointment up. I met them there the following day. And the very first word, I said, hi, I'm John Mayfield. The very first words out of his mouth, while he put his hands on his hips and gave me this real kind of stern voice, said, how come this house is only worth X number of dollars on, and you could probably fill in the blank of the website, an estimate he found online. And it was about $30,000 lower than my list price. And I said, that's a great question, and I'm glad you asked that. Because what you looked at online is nothing more than a computer that's trying to value my property without ever looking at it. It's a computer that's just looking at data that it has available to it from the internet. And unfortunately, that computer in Missouri, because we are a non-disclosure state, only has access to public information. And so it doesn't have access to the MLS, does it? And that automated valuation model, unfortunately, many times is incorrect. Well, when I explained that to him, he understood and felt much more at ease. And in fact, those people purchased that home that had a $30,000 discrepancy. Now, here's the problem or the issue and why we have RPR today. There's lots of people who are going out and purchasing those AVMs. We could call them those cruddy AVMs because they're not very good, are they? Assessors buy them, purchase them to help them figure out how to tax properties in some counties, believe it or not. They go to a company and say, we need pricing valuations, we need automated valuations on properties in our community. And there are companies that wave their hand up in the air and say, oh, we can give you that. And literally the only access to data that they have most of the time is public data. They don't have access to the MLS. So here you have a very popular product that people want that really in a lot of ways is hurting you and I as real estate professionals because the information's so incorrect. And in many times, people may not even call you about your listing if they go online to one of these websites and this website says, well, we think the house is only worth X number of dollars. And you have it listed for $30,000 or $40,000 more higher than that. They may never even call you because they're taking that internet information as being accurate. So you have a value that people want that's not very good, and it's in huge demand. So the National Association of Realtors said, you know what, we have to do something about this for our members. So they created what's called the Realtors Valuation Model. We registered or trademarked this, and it's the RVM. And what it does is the same thing the computer above does, the AVM, except it uses the MLS active sold and off market. And through that, it can come up with the most highest accuracy of any of the valuation products available. So we call it the Realtors Valuation Model, and that's what we're going to look at today. And it's a very interesting concept, and I think you'll really like it. Now, I'm going to go out and just take a look at some questions to make sure. Let's see. I see a couple of questions. Can realtors access rental properties? Not yet. However, soon, that could be something that's out there. I see that someone said they couldn't access the chat box. It should be there. Another question. How accurate are RPR listing prices and comps? Now, that's a great question. And I started to mention this a minute ago. Now, this is just my experience in my local market, the Monroe Area Board of Realtors in Southeast Missouri. Those RVMs are about 85 to 90% of the time pretty accurate for me. In other words, let me rephrase that. When I go out on a listing appointment, we all kind of get a gut feeling. I mean, if you know your market pretty good, most of us who do know our market pretty good, and we're showing properties a lot and selling properties a lot, and especially if you're in smaller rural areas, I mean, we get a gut feeling of what we hope they will list the home for when we go out to list it. And for me, it's about 85 to 90% of the time pretty accurate. So there is school data in RPR, Jack, and I'll show you that here in just a little bit. So we're going to, and Randy says, click on the orange arrow for the chat box. Thank you, Randy. Okay, and Brad wants to know, is CoreLogic's Realist an AVM or an RVM in Minnesota? It would probably be an AVM because the RVM, Randy, Brad, is specific only to the National Association of Realtors. And everybody has a different algorithm, but I'm thinking Realist, I don't know the exact answer to that, but they may have some algorithm that would be similar to that, so. But you're right. Deanna says the AVM doesn't use MLS, but the RVM does. Great, Deanna, you get an A+. So, all right, you're doing good. All right, so we're going to go right out into RPR and get started here. Again, feel free to type in any questions. I'll come out and check those in just a little bit. So everybody's with me on why RPR came about, why it's a good tool to use. I usually tell this story, and I think it's really important for you to hear, and it, to me, clears up why I use RPR. And by the way, when I go out on a listing presentation, my first place to go is RPR. I don't go to my MLS anymore. I mean, I still do occasionally for pricing properties, but 99% of the time I go to RPR. I'm driving to Columbia, Missouri, listening to an MP3, an interview with an online internet marketer named Joe Polish. You can go look him up on Google. He used to have a dry cleaning business. He ran all his charge cards up so that he could make his dry cleaning business survive. He wanted to figure out how to become a good marketer, and he did. He's very successful. And he was having an interview on this MP3 I'm listening to. And Joe Polish was asked, or told the person interviewing him this, he made this statement. He said, you know, there's really only one difference between a dollar bill and $100 bill. Now, when I heard that question or that statement, I perked up and I thought, boy, that's interesting. What is that? And Joe followed that up by saying, it's the message. Now, if you take nothing else away from this webinar today, if you never use RPR, if you don't get anything, I want you to walk away with that nugget right there. Because I want you to ask yourself that question. What message am I delivering to the consumer in my marketplace? Think about that for a minute. When I heard Joe Polish make that statement, I was like, okay, now I know why RPR works for me. Because I'm delivering a $100 bill message. And my competitors who are printing out 2 or 3 pages from their MLS are taking in a dollar bill message. My message is so convincing and so accepting to my clients and consumers on why they need to price their property at a certain place that it just works. So that's one reason I want you to really think about RPR and why it's working so well for me. Now we're at the login for RPR, and to get there, you want to go to NAR for National Association of Realtors, RPR. Hopefully I pronounced that okay. I am on the edge of the Ozarks where we kind of get our words a little bit confused, but it's NARRPR.com. And that'll take you to the homepage. Now, if you've never signed up, you'll need to go through that process. You will need your NERDS number, and you will also need your MLS login ID and a couple of items like that. So NARRPR.com, and you want to then, you'll come right here to the website, and you'll be logged in. Now I'm just going to bring up, and I always forget to do that, but I just want to bring up a little writing tool that I have here so you can see what I'm doing. Try to get this over there a little bit. There we go. So right here, if you'll notice, I have a settings icon. That's what we want to look at first. And so you're going to go over to your settings icon right here. And this is where you will update your picture, your logo. You want to make sure your name and everything that's populating over from the MLS is correct. Make sure your phone number, your fax, and all of that is on there. And then you'll set up your MLS ID down below. Now, the reason this is important is because when you go to generate reports, this information will populate and it will look very professional on your reports. So you want to make sure you add your photo and your logo. And again, all of that's right here under the settings icon. Now you'll notice right up here, many of you, if you're seeing your MLS logo, then your broker has not taken advantage of setting up their their tools. And the way you can do that, you want to show you, or if you have any brokers or managers on the call, go all the way to the bottom, and there's a little button called blog right here. There's two places we can access that. And so I'm going to go to the blog, and you will see this is where you can actually go in and do some training as well, and lots of videos and information. So our resource center is here. You want to go right here to pick a specialty. If you're a real estate agent, pick the agents, and you can find out and learn more about using RPR. If you're a broker, or if you are an agent and you want to see your logo, your company logo branded, there's no charge for that. You want to select brokers, and you want to go right here to enroll. And when you select enroll, you'll just follow those two steps. You'll download the spreadsheet, complete this information. Your broker has to do this, upload your logo, the spreadsheet, submit, and RPR will take care of the rest of that for you. So again, that is located down at the bottom right here where it says blog, and I'll get my little pen so you can see that right there at the very bottom. Select blog, and when you select blog, it will take you over to this area where you can now select brokers and enroll in the tool set. Okay, so that's part of our training for today, was to show you where to get your education. So now you know where to do that. Some more information for setting up your logo, because you want to be sure and do that. Now let's get into searching properties, because this is really where you're going to start to use RPR as a real estate professional. You'll notice right here in the middle, there's a bunch of opportunities here. This is the search bar where you're going to type in the information right here. And notice that we can search for all properties. We can search for properties that are for sale. And we can search by neighborhoods. We can even search by schools. We can do some really cool things with market activity. I'm going to show you how to use that as a listing and prospecting tool here in just a moment. But I want to concentrate on two things, first of all, for you. All properties and properties that are for sale. You could basically say that if you are searching properties that are for sale, you're really searching your MLS, okay? Now, remember Mr. and Mrs. Smith I told you about? I had to search over here under all properties. And maybe this is not the best way to describe it. I think it is. I mean, but to me, this is actually, and I'm having to use my mouse to draw, so it's a little difficult with a trackpad and a mouse, but when you search all properties, it's kind of like you're searching the county courthouse database, okay? Because it's going to have properties that are listed for sale, but it's got everything else in there as well. If you're searching for sale, you're really kind of mirroring the MLS. That's kind of the way I like to look at it. So let's just kind of say we're going to, or let me show you some search options here. So just remember that. I did a webinar a couple of months ago for this same broadcast. It was a national webinar. And I had a lady that sent me an email, and she said, oh man, I was so excited after your webinar, and I've got this listing appointment, and I go out and I search for this property by the street address, and it tells me I can't find it. Can you help me out, John? And I asked her the question, is the property listed? And she said, no. And I said, did you search under for sale, or did you search under all properties? And she wrote me back and said, I found it. I was searching under the for sale icon. Well, again, that's your MLS. And if you're searching for a property that's not listed, then you want to search over here in the all properties right there. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the ways you can search. And I'm going to just put my cursor right in here. I can search by street address. So if I know the street address, I can just type that in just like that. That's exactly what I did for Mr. and Mrs. Smith's house. However, I had to be under all properties because it had never been listed in the MLS. Now, if someone calls me up and says, "Hey, our listing's expiring next week, and we want a new agent. We're interviewing 2 or 3 new agents. We want you to come out and check with us." You could search under all properties, but you could also search under for sale because it's currently listed. So we can search by street address. We can search by zip code, see that? And everything auto-populates. I can search by, I know we had someone on here from Tampa. I saw that a minute. Notice when I type in TAM, see how it's auto-populating for me? And it's saying, did you mean Tamarack, Minnesota? Boom, I can go there. Now, I can't search in Tamarack, Minnesota. I can't search their MLS because I'm not a member. But I could go over here to neighborhoods and I could run the search and I can find out all of the information I want to find out about Tamarack, Indiana. Look at this. Average sales price, $163,000. Change over last month, 34.71%. Change over last 12 months, down 38. Now, I do want to give a disclaimer. This may be a very small area. There's only 542 homes there, so that data could be skewed quite a bit. But do you see how I was immediately able to go to Tamarack, Minnesota? And now I can get more data about the community. Look at this. In fact, we can go to Tamarack, Indiana, or Minnesota. I don't know why I keep wanting to put Indiana on there. Tamarack, Minnesota. We can go down and we can see right here. Look at that. 48.3% vote Democrat, 49.6% vote Republican. That's interesting. Most all areas that I when I check that, there's a wide swing. They're either Republican or Democrat. They're almost right down the middle there, which is interesting. So look at how I was able to use RPR to go right in to information about that community. So, and by doing that, I switched to neighborhoods. So we can also search by county. So now I'm typing in St. Francis, and I have a St. Francis County, Missouri. That's where I live. So now I can search by county. So I wanted you to see that you can search by city, county, zip code. You can search by street address, and you can even search by some other parameters they have listed there. Now, if you want to, because sometimes people say, I want to search Scottsdale, Arizona. So I'm going to go to Scottsdale, Arizona. Notice it's auto-populating, and I'm just going to do the all properties. But I want to get a little bit more specific. I see where I have the ability to search by price, right here below. But can I get any more specific than that, John? And the answer is yes. See the Advanced tab right here on the right-hand side. Let me just point that out so everybody can see it, because I know sometimes so right there, the Advanced tab. So I'm going to select the Advanced tab, and now I'm going to scroll down and look. I can actually search by the owner's name. I could search by the parcel number. I can even say, you know what? I just like to see if there are any pre-foreclosures in the area. So I notice I unchecked non-distressed, and so I'm going to search for pre-foreclosures. Now, this is like Geraldo Rivera when he opened the vault. Remember that a few years ago? And we watched for 2 hours and nothing happened? That could happen here. But hopefully, I shouldn't say hopefully, because these are pre-foreclosures. We have 436 pre-foreclosures in Scottsdale, Arizona. Now, my gut feeling is, and we can then sort those by address, by most expensive, least expensive, recently updated, lots of ways we can sort those. My gut feeling is Arizona must be a judicial foreclosure where it takes a little bit longer to get through the foreclosure process, because I find that as well in Florida and some other states. But notice, just to recap what we did here, we basically, from the home screen, typed in our location that we were interested in. In this case, I wanted to do Scottsdale, Arizona, and I did the whole town. I could have just drilled to a zip code. I went to the Advanced tab, and everything's checked, and all I said was, give me just the distressed, anything that's pre-foreclosure. And now I'm able to search and get the results there. So going back to the home screen, I'm just going to go back over here. Keep in mind, you can search by a number of parameters, a number of different ways, and you can even do some advanced searching. In fact, when we do some searches like this, on the left-hand side of your screen, I can make any changes through here. So if I wanted to uncheck non-distressed, I could apply the results. And by the way, I'm just searching the for sale side. And now I have 20 properties that are pre-foreclosures. And if you have an investor who's thinking about one of these properties, you could click on that link and go right to that property and look at that a little bit further. In fact, what's interesting about this is that if I select the bigger map over here to the right, I can now go in and I can look at what's happening in that neighborhood. So here's my subject property right here. See that? And if I want to find out more about that, and it's got an RVM of 382 right there. If I want to look at other properties in the neighborhood, green means sold. There's a sold property, not too far away, 260. Here's one that sold for 358. Here's one that sold for 434. Lots of sold activity. There's another sold. There's another sold. And so I'm looking around. I don't see any for sale because those would be in blue. But now I'm able to go and look at what's happening in the marketplace. And by the way, I can also change this to a Google view. So if I want to change the view, I thought I clicked the aerial right there. I now, there we go, have this in a Google view where I can drop down. It's actually a Bing view, but they're getting ready to add Google view, which means we'll be able to drop down in and look at street views of the properties. This is very powerful when you go into a listing presentation and you have a seller who's wanting to be at a certain price range, and you're able to show them all the activity and what's going on around them just through one overhead view like that. So keep in mind, this mapping feature is really pretty cool, and it's always going to be available when you're on properties. So as I'm here on any property, you're going to be able to see the map view. Now let's drop over here. I pulled this one property up, this particular property right here, and just kind of go around and show you some things here on the property. It's listed for $364,890. Now the RVM is what, 335. We are getting a 5-star RVM confidence. Now, if you're like me from college algebra, you're probably thinking, what in the world is he talking about? How am I going to remember RVM confidence? I don't even remember what an RVM is, much less an AVM. Well, you're in good luck, because you'll notice by everything, you can just put your mouse over the eye and it will explain for you what those terms mean. So this is a really good feature if you forget what's happening. But I do want you to see this, because there is a discrepancy here. I mean, if you were working with a buyer as a buyer's agent, you owe that buyer what? Fiduciary obligations. You owe that buyer care, obedience, accounting, loyalty, and disclosure. Care means you need to make sure they're paying the right price for a property. If I'm a buyer's agent and I see this, now I can't rely, I see the list price and I see the current RVM, and I can't rely on that as being the gospel. But I also see that it's a 5-star. This concerns me a little bit because I don't want my client paying too much for that house. If my client paid $360 for that, it's only worth $330. They're paying $30,000 too much money. And as a buyer's agent, I have a fiduciary obligation to make sure they don't do that. And I need to at least explain that to them and show that to them. But at the same time, I don't know what's going on in the 85250 zip code. This is where you get to use your experience and your knowledge to fine tune and make this correct. So let's take a look at a couple of things. First of all, we have 335,070 as an RVM. It's a 5-star confidence. My first question is, where did they get this number? Or where did how did the computer arrive at that number? If you'll notice right below that number, right here where it says View Details, if I select View Details, I can scroll down and I can see all of the comps that the computer chose to calculate that RVM. And this is being updated and analyzed all the time. And something else that I didn't realize that's very interesting, I think, is that this RVM is really taking into consideration what's going on in the marketplace and doing projections based on trends, and it's all kinds of wild mathematical formulas. So it's at 335. We might have a problem with this if we're a buyer's agent. Now, if you're a seller, if you're the listing agent on this, and I apologize if the listing agent is on board with us watching this webinar, but if you're the listing agent, you're not going to be able to sell that property if it's priced too high. So we've got to do some fine tuning on this. Now, remember, I'm going to just show you some things that are available here. You have this bigger map. So I can go in and I can look at what's happening around this property. Well, immediately, here's my subject property, 364. These are all off market, so I can't use those as comparisons. But boy, right just around the corner, there's one that sold for 275. Here's one that sold for 325. All of a sudden, I'm not feeling too good. Here's one that is listed for 295 down here, 269. There's one for 345. To me, and I'm not even in this marketplace, it looks like we could be too high. It's just my gut feeling. But again, I don't know the quality of what they've done in the house and so forth. But we have this bigger map that we can look at. Now, right underneath the bigger map, you're going to use this a lot. This helps you tell the story. It's right here. They're called heat maps, okay? And if I go into a heat map, my favorite one to use is 12-month change in estimated value. So that's a good sign here. This property, our subject property, is located in a lighter blue area. What's lighter blue mean? Everything's listed right down there below. You can see that. So lighter blue means, and here we're right down there, lighter blue means that property values are going up. Red and pink means property values are going down. Now this is over a 12-month comparison. I had a lady one time, and I don't know if you have clients like this or customers like this in your marketplace. It might just be unique to Missouri. But I had a lady one time that when I gave her my suggested list price, she got really mad at me. Do you guys have that? Do you ever have anyone like that? Okay, we all do, right? She was not a happy camper when I told her what her house should be listed for. But here's the problem. Let's just pretend this was her property here. She was right in the middle of deep, dark red. This area like that, right there, right here. Now remember what dark red stands for? Property values are going down. She couldn't understand when I showed her that price at the beginning why her property had lost value over 12 months. But when I showed her the reasons and what was going on in the marketplace, she understood. So you're going to have lots of examples and heat overlays that you can use. There's all kinds of overlays. And again, they help you tell your story. They help you build your case and deliver a message that is convincible, believing, and it's a $100 bill message. And if you ever say, well, where do they get this information? Everything's footnoted in RPR. So they're gathering this data. Remember, I said there are over 300 pieces of information that are being aggregated and brought into RPR, and this tells you where they pulled that data from. So you just select the About button and you get that. Again, at any time you want to go to a more of a Google view or an Earth view, you have the ability to change that right up here. You have the ability to do some really cool things, and this I want to show you because I think it's very important. I'm going to drill in here. And remember we said that RPR could be a prospecting tool, right? So I want to go up here. I have the ability to draw boxes. I can do drive time. So if I said, you know, I have a doctor, he has to be within 15 minutes of the hospital, I can search by drive time. I have a fireman I'm working with who has to live within 5 minutes of the fire station. I can do that as well. And I can actually do lots of choices and searching from up here. So I'm going to go over here to Polygon, and I'm going to drill down in there again because I kind of drilled out a little bit. And we're just going to take this area right here because we've got a freeway there. So I'm going to draw, again, I chose the polygon up here. So I'm just drawing a map around this right there. And now I'm going to save this area. And I'm going to save it as Redwood Subdivision. And I'm going to say, okay. Now I've saved this as Redwood Subdivision. I can actually search this area and see if there's any properties for sale in there. So let's see, there's 11 properties. And I'm going to go back up here to my home screen just to click the home button. And I'm going to show you how to use this. Notice on the left, right over here, I have all my saved items. Here's that new subdivision I just saved, Redwood Subdivision. I'm going to just pull that up, and I'm going to go up and I'm going to select Reports, or I could select Create a Report. And I'm going to select Market Activity. That's this one right here where my mouse is moving. It's already checked. If I select More Details, I have the ability to go back and check this for 1 week or 3 days or 3 months. I'm going to go back 1 month. And I'm going to uncheck Expired and uncheck Open House. Okay? So I've gone back a month. I've unchecked Expired and Open House. Now, why did I do that? Because I'm sending this out to my farm area, and I don't want them to see the expireds. Okay, but I want them to see everything else that's going on. And now I'm going to run the report. So I can go on and work in my RPR, and it will tell me when that's finished. Now, remember I showed you subdivisions a minute ago, and there's some really cool things you can do with subdivisions. So I have with the neighborhoods. So I have a summary of the neighborhood. I have the housing. All of these are great things you can put on Twitter and post those. I also have people information that I can check on there. Right there you can see. And I have the economy. I can go over here and look at the economy And now I see that. And I even have the quality of life. So I can see that there are 180 days of full sunshine a year in Arizona, Scottsdale. There's only 110 in Missouri. I'm ready to move. But now I'm going to go out and show you what I did using a little program called Flip Builder. Now, there is a cost for Flip Builder, but I'm just going to go to My Communities right here, and I'm going to just pick Park Hills. And with Flip Builder, I actually can take that RPR report, and now I've created a digital magazine. And by the way, I can share this on Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn. I can embed it into my email. I can do some really cool things because I want to drive people where? To my website. And then when they click and they see this information, it helps me become the expert and knowledgeable about my marketplace. And I'm hoping that maybe they'll hang around, look at some properties, and contact me about doing business. But think about this. Remember, we were just a minute ago. I'm going to go back over here and go to my reports, and I go to my report, Redwood subdivision. Remember, we took a farm area and we drew a line around it. Now, you would painstakingly take your time to do your drawing. And it's for Redwood subdivision, and it gives them the entire recap of what's going on in their neighborhood. Price changes, sale pending, new listings, recently sold, the whole bit. Think about the ability to take this, and then I want to go back out to my website here. And if you went to you created a page on your website for a subdivision, like I did here. And you even have a video where you take your GoPro camera and you go around the subdivision and show people what it looks like. And you allow them to download that free report right here. Plus, they can sign up for the report through MailChimp. I'm doing all of this for free. I'm putting the report in Dropbox. Or I can embed this on my website. And now when each month I send a postcard, or as I collect email addresses, I send out the email that the information or the latest real estate news for Redwood subdivision is now available. Click here to view what's going on. They can view that market activity report I just showed you in a digital format. And you're driving people to your website. They're signing up for your monthly newsletter. And then what happens is they want to choose you when they're ready to sell their property because you become the expert, or maybe purchase a home. So those are some things that you can do by taking the time to go into this bigger map and draw some lines around the subdivision, and then save that as a subdivision and let people know what's going on. Now, I want to quickly go, we're going to go back to this property here that we're working on, because remember, the one thing I've kind of shown you a lot of the tools, and again, this is just a basic RPR class, but I wanted to show you some cooler things you could do. I will get to the questions here in just a second, but I want to show you a couple more really quick things, because remember, we can't take this RVM. I've got a different property up here. Let's see. I wanted to go back to my property. I think this is it right here that we were looking at. Remember that we cannot take this property as the gospel. We can't really say that it's worth $335. So what we have to do is we have to go to refined value right here. Now, when we go to refined value, this is where we get to add information, because perhaps when we went out, the owner said, and we noticed they had remodeled their kitchen last April in 2015, and they spent $35,000. And when we include that, notice what happens. been given $22,000 in value. Now, how does that calculate that? RPR works with a company that monitors building costs, depreciation, labor. They're doing all of this work in the background for you. But now you get to have the conversation and you get to add changes or additions as to the repairs they've done. You also get to go in and say, you know what, right now our market's pretty hot. And the exterior conditions very good. The interior is really nice. And so you get to go in, and now all of a sudden we've raised that to $29,000. So see, now we're up here in a better range. And maybe we could come down and say, well, the market's good, but maybe the market's not that great right now. See how we're making changes and everything's getting updated. And then finally, we go over to the comp analysis, and it's 5 really easy steps. Our first step is to confirm the facts. So you're going to confirm the facts. Our second step would be to find comps. So I would just leave this alone and select search. You can make any changes you want if you don't come up with good comps, but the better comps to find will be leaving that alone. So notice I can always modify that. And now I can add my comps based on my experience. Notice the stars, that means it was used in the RVM. So I'm just going to grab a few of these. We'll go on down, and I'll grab one more. And now you update the valuation and close. And here, we can see we've got a different number. It's at 312. I'm going to select edit, and I'm going to just select 329 to 319 to 339. And I'll click save. I could leave that alone, and now I'm ready to print my report. Now, if I select more details, you'll notice that the report, it's like 85 pages when it's done. And here's what I want you to do, because it works for me every time. Select Run Report. Do not email it to them unless they live out of state. Again, you can go on and do your work in RPR. When that report is ready, it will show me and I can download it here. I use my iPad, and I use a little program called iAnnotate. You can also use your laptop. Go out to the house, go through the report with the consumer. Do I go through all 85 pages? No. The reason I like to use iAnnotate with my iPad is that I can circle and highlight and draw information. Now you'll notice that I'm a very visual person, and I like that, but it helps me with my presentation. So there's some really, it gives a great report. And then what I do when I'm at their house is I get my mobile phone out that I use RPR on, and you can download the RPR mobile app right here from our NAR RPR, and it's in sync with whatever you do online. So when I get my mobile phone out, I just either text or email the RPR report when I'm complete. And they can print out the 85 pages on their printer. I've not had anybody be upset with that. Everyone likes it. Everyone appreciates my CMA. When I beat out the competition and I'm typing up the listing agreement, I hear this over and over again. Wow, your report, you put a lot of work in your report. Your report you did for us was awesome. And folks, I'm just doing the same thing you can do in a matter of a few keystrokes. And by the way, there's some other things that, there's so much more that I could show you with RPR and I didn't get a chance to. But there's some really great things that you can do and fine tune and ways that you can adjust the comps and and I meant to show you that, and my apologies for not doing that. I do have a couple of other RPR webinars I put on my website that you could watch, and I'll show you that link in just a second. I do want to mention that all of your recent searches, your recent reports, recent properties are right there. So if I want to go back to that last property we just did the CMA on, if I'm over here on the comp analysis side, see right down here, I can adjust the comps. So here I can arrange the comps to be in whatever order I want, and I can make adjustments to the comps right there. I can also add notes. So if I want to add notes, I can add that right in there, and now I can update my valuation and close. So all of your recent comps, recent reports, recent searches are all available right there in the middle of RPR. I showed you where you can access additional help from the blog. There's always live chat. It's from Omaha, Nebraska. It's 24/7, 365 days a year. So you can always get help from RPR. There's plenty of videos. There's just so much that you can do with RPR that I really believe you're gonna just enjoy using it. It's gonna be a great new tool for you. My report's ready, so I can just download that right here, and you'll see that it is just an amazing report. Now I want to see if there's any questions that are out there, and I see there are a bunch. So John said, are you able to see MailChimp how many views on that neighborhood report you're getting? Yes, you can, and I can do that from within my website as well. And that's a great point, John. He's talking about when I was showing you my neighborhood that I created, Log Cabin Lane, and I asked for subscribers. You know, my goal is I just want to get folks that are really interested in being on my mailing list. So if they sign up, that really is a higher level interest. So you can, yes, you can use Google Drive instead of Dropbox. Can you do a bar graph, square footage of comps? There are tons of graphs there, Tom, so the answer is yes. I'm just going to pick a few of these out. Shelley wanted to know what was the site you use on your iPad or the app. It's called iAnnotate. And by the way, let me just show you that. My website, and I'm in the process of updating my website, is businesstechguy.com. So my phone number will be there, as well as my email address. I'll leave that up. Any of the tools you want, feel free to reach out to me. I actually have I have some videos I've done on iAnnotate, and I'll send those to you for free to watch. Let's see if there's a couple of, well, thank you so much. I'm getting a lot of nice comments, and I appreciate that. I kind of did a different presentation, and I see a few things I missed, but I like for my RPR presentations to be conversational, and I want you to know how I'm using it in my business. I don't want to just kind of be the same old, same old. So I hope that you enjoyed it, and I appreciate your time. I know we're 5 minutes over, but please reach out to me if you have any more questions. Go out and use it. It is a great tool. It will help you close more business. I know it will. And sign up at my website for my 2-minute tech tips. I sometimes do some off-the-wall kind of interesting, creative things with free webinars on how to use RPR. So thanks again for joining. Have a great day, and shoot me an email if there's any additional questions you have. Thank you, John. I appreciate those kind words. And Dixie and a lot of you. Thank you so much. Let's see, Tom wanted to know, can I answer his questions? Yeah, let me go back up, Tom, and I'll look at that. So don't hang up, Tom, if you're there. Tom says the bar graph should contain the subject as reference. Can you do a bar graph of above ground square footage of comps used in the RVM? Let me see here, Tom. Would that be under the neighborhood report you were asking, or? Hey, Tom, if you want to call me offline afterwards, let's take a look at that, and I'll be glad to help you with that anyway. So, and why, yeah, if you want a copy of this, send me an email, and I'll be sure and send you a link because I did record it. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great day. And Tom or any others, give me a call offline, and we'll help you out with that. Thank you.